So hi, hello, good morning, good afternoon and good evening to wherever you are in the world right now. Welcome to the third edition, the episode 3 of the Inside Out Effect podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Jakes from healingthemind.co.uk, and with me today is my co-host, founder of Decoding Pain, creator of the DTO system, and author of the book Decoding Pain, the Emotional Blueprint to Healing Chronic Pain. So, good afternoon, Jonathan. Welcome back. How are you today?
Steve.
How are you? Have you had a good week?
I'm very good, very good. Yeah, it's been a really good week. Been busy. People have been listening to the podcast and they've been commenting and reacting, and I've had people call up and be interested in what we're doing. So it seems to be working. We seem to get the message out there, which is great. Yeah,
I must admit, it's been a bit more of a success than I initially thought it. I mean, we've still got a long way to go. And if any of you out there are listening to this podcast and actually get a lot from it, and you know people that are obviously dealing with the issues that we discuss, then please share and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. But also please share it on Facebook and LinkedIn and other places as well, which we're releasing.
Definitely. Yeah.
Because I think the more people that hear this, the better. And the whole idea of this really is to get this information out there, because there's a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions which we've spoken about. And today, obviously, we're going to be speaking about one of them in particular.
Yes, depression.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
big misunderstanding about depression.
Yeah. So today's podcast is actually named, or we're going to call this one, "How to Remove, Solve, and Heal Depression." Now, this is part 1 of 2 parts, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But this is part 1, and we're going to be doing this over 2 parts because I think what we've come to realise is that it's such a big spectrum of information and causes it. And do you want to elaborate on that?
It's a big thing. There's a lot of information that people don't know about it that we could cover. But I could talk about depression all day to you. That would bore you to tears.
Keep you depressed.
You'd be depressed with it, basically. We just want to give you the most vital information, teach you the myths behind it, and then teach you the exact steps you need to take to solve it. So there are a set of steps you need to take, which we're going to cover in part 2. But before we get to that, you need to understand the actual reason why depression is there, not what the traditional medicine tells you. And you need to know the myths behind it and some of the beliefs that get created that you may be believing right now that are actually perhaps stopping you from solving your depression because of what you believe or the myth that you've been told.
What you've been taught or told. Absolutely.
And they stop you from healing it. And the lack of understanding as well can stop you from healing it because you believe it's not possible. Yeah. But if we can dispel those myths, give you a different viewpoint of it, and then in the second podcast that we do, show you the exact steps that you need to take. Obviously, we can't reach through the podcast and do it for you, but we can show you exactly what you need to do so that then if you then decide to do it, you can then find the right people, the right person to help you resolve those things. But in the second podcast, the exact steps we're going to walk you through is exactly what we do with our clients to get them out of depression, and it's exactly how we solved our own depression.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing as well is I know some of you that might be listening, I'm just going to sort of preempt it, is that that you might think, oh, well, if I'm not going to get the solution now, then, I'll wait for the second podcast. This is really important that you listen to this information, because fundamentally the majority of people are stuck or have beliefs around depression which keeps them with it for a long period of time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to untangle that, aren't we? We're going to literally dissect it in exactly what, in the many instances, the people are experiencing it, and we're going to dissect it. So getting this understanding of what we're told and what's really going on is probably really important, and the second podcast will make sense to you, because if you haven't heard the first podcast, I don't think the second podcast is going to make any sense.
No, you need to hear the both for the second part to make sense.
Yeah.
But we've broken it down so you can digest the information first and then take the second bit in a bit later on.
Yeah.
But what we're going to do first is we're going to just tell a bit about our story and how we suffered depression, how it affected us, what we learned from it, and how we solved it ourselves. So you can see how all these beliefs affected us and how all of these myths affected us, and the belief systems and learnings, as Steve said, that we had that caused us to be stuck with it. And especially me being a therapist for 20 years, some of the things I learned did not help me solve it. I had to learn new things. And we're going to explain a few things like that and how people can get stuck with it. So we're going to go through our story first and explain how we did it.
Yeah, so we also, and then after that, I think we're going to go for the traditional viewpoint of what the common beliefs are and what current treatments and I would say medicine per se view it, and how they're trying to get you to deal with it and manage it and cope with it. And so we're going to cover all those as we go through the podcast. So I suppose really we go back to starting with our stories. I'll start with mine, because mine, like I've said on many instances on other videos and podcasts that I've done, is that I had depression for a very, very long time, and actually I didn't really realise I had it, to be quite honest. The reason I didn't realise I had it is because I was medicating, self-medicating. So I was severely drunk a lot. I had a very, very, very heavy cocaine habit as well, which which I no longer have, and haven't had it for a long, long time. But the problem that I had is all the time I was doing that, it was masking the depression.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I really quit self-medicating that I obviously had the depression really kicked in. But I also had I had loads of childhood traumas. I've also been victim to lots of stuff that had happened to me through my businesses, through my work colleagues, through relationships, through breakups, not seeing my children, my son being taken to another country, my business partners, I'm going to say in the nicest way possible, letting me down.
Yeah.
I could say it in a lot nastier way. Yeah. But the theft of money from me and business and all the rest of it. So a lot of it, I had a lot of stuff going on, and I decided that I knew that I needed to do something about it. So I tried everything. I mean, I went out.
Why did you decide you needed to do something about it? What was the prompt that says? Because before you didn't want to do anything about it. You were drinking, doing drugs.
Yeah.
And you just were stuck.
Yeah.
What was it that made you tip over and go? Well, I've got to do something now.
Well, what happened was, mate, I went through a whole episode of my business failing. My business partner, I want to be so careful what I say here, but my business partner walking out on me, the people that work for me screwing me over, stealing my money, stealing my business, stealing my clients, blah, 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 stealing my staff, sabotaging everything that I basically did. And then I basically tried to stand on my own 2 feet without those people. And it was so badly damaged that I was fighting, I don't even know, to be quite honest, how I even managed to exist for the period of time I did, because it was so corrupted and so bad. But I decided after about 2 years that I no longer wanted to do it anymore. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was due a spine operation, and anyway, I had the spine op, and I was looking after my son, and the only thing that I had left was my little boy, Roots, and my ex-partner. And she just come home one day on my birthday pretty much and said, I'm leaving, I'm going to Ireland and I'm taking your son. And that was the last thing I had left. I'd lost my house, I lost my business, lost my car, lost everything.
So you literally lost everything.
Every single thing.
Vanished.
Every single thing. No, it was everything. My money, my friends, just everything. Everything just seemed to vanish from me. And it didn't matter how hard I tried, and it didn't matter how good a person I was being, I was just under attack. It was they were coming so quickly that I actually couldn't get over the first trauma before the second one was coming. And then the second one coming, then the first one I'd forgotten about, and it was really bad, but I didn't have time to deal with the first one, so I had time to deal with the second one. Then the third one came along, then the fourth one came along, then the fifth one came along, and it was just like a torrent of stuff that went on for about a year. I can't really tell you how hard that was. It was really difficult. Yeah. It was a real test. But anyway, and the only thing I had left really was my boy. And once my because I accumulated quite a bit of wealth, but once that had gone, supporting my family and supporting the staff that I had with my business, once that had gone, then it wasn't long before.
So what happened once it all gone? What happened?
Well, she left, took my son to Ireland, and then I was basically left on my own on my birthday, and I was just, do you know what? I've had enough of this. If this is what life's all about, because I like to think of myself as a really good, kind, positive, caring person, very generous. I've got my faults, or had my faults. A lot of them.
Everyone has faults.
Yeah, a lot of them. I don't have anymore. But I actually just wanted to end my life, and I would spend I would spend about 3 to 4 weeks in bed, and the only time I'd get out would be to eat and go to the toilet. And I actually physically couldn't get out because of the pain that was going on in my stomach, right around my stomach area. Right. And so I just wanted to end my life. And anyway, I even went and told my mum. I said, "Look, Mum, Dad, I'm not being emotional. I'm not being a victim, but I'm tapping out the game. I'm out the game. I need to get out of the game because I just no longer want to be here. Anyway, that's what happened to me, and then I decided that that wasn't the right move, and I then decided to try and change the way that I felt. I knew that if I could change the way that I felt, I wouldn't want to end my life, but I knew that I was feeling so bad. It was so bad. I mean, I can't tell you how difficult that was. So I then went and I watched the video. I started looking on YouTube, found out about NLP, done that, got my master's in that. I then went and did loads of work with Joe Dispenza, and who's, for those of you who know him, who's a leading doctor and behavioural therapist and neuroscientist, and so I worked with him, and then I also did counsellor training. I went and met Noya, and also done. So I did a lot. I did everything.
You did a lot of things.
I did a lot of things.
And you actually went really deep, because NLP and the Joe Dispenza stuff, that's actually quite deep stuff.
Yeah,
that's actually proper good healing techniques.
Yeah, the meditation stuff. I spent so many hours in meditation and practicing meditation, and the other things was that I was doing was I locked myself in my house for 2 years.
Right.
So from pretty much April 2016 to April 2018, I virtually left my house other than to go to the supermarket. Very occasionally I went out. But I actually sat in my house for 2 years in front of the TV learning every single thing. So I self-taught myself. And and that's what has been a massive benefit to me, because I haven't gone through a system.
No.
So I found out from all the leading experts and all the people that I actually did work with. So I did workshops with these, some people, but that was a big help for me, because what I ended up was I wasn't polluted with other perceptions and beliefs about
from traditional medicine. You didn't have that whole traditional viewpoint.
Absolutely, I didn't have any from the traditional viewpoint. So I went in saying I need to sort this out. I want to do this for myself. And the other thing as well is the reason I had to do it myself is because I've been through counselling, I've done CBC, I've done NLP, I'd worked with all of these top people, and none of it would worked. Basically, what had happened is it was a big distraction,
right?
Because at the end of that 2 years, I ended up being exactly back where I was. It was about 2.5 years. And I then, a friend of mine, I was taking him to the airport. They mentioned a program that they'd done with a friend of ours, Gregory, Reboot. And I just thought to myself, I was in a meditation, and so it's just phone him. So I rang him, and I said to him, if this don't work, 3 times I said to him, and we do talk about it, I said 3 times to him, if this doesn't work, that's it for me. Because I've done everything. There's nothing else out there. It's everything. It's just a waste of time. I'm not prepared to carry on living like this. It's just, you can call me selfish, whatever. Life, no point. Point. Done. I was done, yeah. So I done all of that, and luckily enough.
So you did the reboot.
I did, and
how'd that help? Massive help? Right.
Huge.
So was that the first thing that massively helped?
Yeah, so what basically happened was it reconnected me to who I was, and that was a really, really good thing. But it did help. And now, but there was still lots of issues from my past that obviously I was still carrying, because
so the trauma from your past was still left.
All of them.
It reconnected you.
Yeah, it reconnected.
Which was great.
Yes.
But then you still had all this past trauma that was running.
Yes.
And how was that affecting you then? What? So you weren't necessarily depressed technically anymore, but what was it?
Well, I'd pop in and out of depression.
You pop in and out of depression.
Yeah, but I'll tell you
what. It wasn't as bad, but you just pop in.
I'd pop in and out of it, and so what was really difficult is I couldn't maintain it, and I had stuff going on for me all the time. I was always getting pulled back to memories, thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and stuff from the past, and so I suppose the best way to put it was I'd have days where I felt like I was at a dementor. We mentioned that in it, like a dementor from Harry Potter, on me, sucking me dry, and I couldn't move. That's what it felt like. Yes. All the happiness and energy just left me, and I couldn't focus and I couldn't function. And then, so anyway, obviously then I started working with you. Through Greg, I met you and started working with you, and then ultimately you introduced DTO to me and kind enough to work with me. And and then over a period of time, it was probably not a great deal of time, to be perfectly honest. It was probably about 3 or 4 months, I suppose, overall. But what happened is we went to all of our past events and then switched off all of the emotional beliefs, feelings that I had, basically, and the memories, all of the things. Because what I'd learned is that I was making it all about me. I took it all personally. It's like a poor me victim. Oh, everybody's done this to me, and I feel bad, and I can't do anything about it, and life's terrible, and I really went into a victim mindset, and that obviously didn't work for me, and and I just needed what I learned from yourself and doing the details by healing and forgiving those people. The healing was forgiving the people for what they did, but not forgiving them for them, but forgiving them for me. And as soon as I'd done that, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I say to people when we talk about what we do, it's permanent and instant. Well, it was permanent and instant because it was just, I can remember finishing some sessions and it felt like I'd flown up 20 flights on an elevator because I just felt so amazingly free. Every session it done that to me, and then before you know it, you're out of depression. You can't even remember what it's like or what you was even depressed about because you can't go back to the memory because they've gone.
That's right.
The memories are there, but the emotional
response behind it is just
completely gone.
And you see it differently, don't you? You see the memory differently.
Completely.
Your perception of the memory has changed.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Or it's faded in the background.
Yeah.
And you can't really see that anymore.
Yeah.
And sometimes other techniques do get that response, but sometimes there's a glitch in them not finding the root of it or not understanding where it's coming from. And a lot of people, they've tried loads of different things that you've tried, and I tried loads of things in my story of depression, which I'll go through briefly in a second. Tried lots of things that didn't really work until I found this little simple DTO system.
Yeah, it's genius.
But out of that, you learnt that you were being a victim to it. You were blaming.
Yes. Poor me. Has everyone done this to me?
And you learnt
I was unlucky. God hated me. All of this stuff.
And that's all
I couldn't
things,
change it. And
that's all typical things that people go through. They blame. They deny. They excuse.
Yeah, make excuses. I was full of excuses.
It's always something external. It's never about themselves.
Yeah.
And you learn also that actually it's your response to the problem. It's your response to your memories.
Yeah.
It's your response to what's happened in your past, not actually what's happened.
Yeah, correct.
Because you can get caught up in, it's because of what happened to me. And you probably did get caught up in that, but what you said, you got caught up in that victim mode, but actually it's your response to what happened.
Well, that's what I learned. I learned that, hang on a minute, all of these feelings are just things that I've made up in the moment.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But those responses have accumulated to get me into a point of just, of being sacked by the dementor. But when I look at it, it was just all me taking everything personal and
it's to take it all personally. That's the main problem. We take it personally when we have a specific type of shock. We take it personally.
Yeah, made everything all about me, made it all personal, and then wondered why I was feeling the way I did. And then obviously what I also learnt was once I'd cleared the first. Well, after the first treatment I had, once I knew what had happened, and I said this in cause and effect, I went upstairs and spent about 3 days and switching stuff off.
That's right, yeah. You got really excited. You went, oh my God, I can change things. Let's do it now.
No, because I was in such a bad place. I mean, I really, really can't tell people how bad I was. I mean, I know people but I was... I mean,
I met you a few months before you did Reboot, and I saw where you were.
Yeah, I was in a petrol place.
And you were just not. To the man you are now, you're a completely different person.
Yes.
And you changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And not that you was a bad person, but you were just really stuck. You were down. You was in pain. You were suffering.
I was in a bad place.
You was in that victim mode, and Reboot really brought you out of that mode. And then since you came out of that, we could then do DTO and bring you clear the past and trauma, but it kind of snapped you out, which was brilliant.
Yeah, and the thing that I got from it was I learned that that basically that all of the negative feelings that I had and negative responses and negative thoughts and negative beliefs can actually just be changed instantly.
Yeah,
you can actually change them, and so that was a massive thing because not only did it change my perception of the world, it changed my whole viewpoint of people. It changed my whole internal state. Instantly, my internal emotional state was just instantly changed, and it's like it's just going up a level very quickly, and you stay there, and up another level, and then up a level, and every time you do it, it's just sometimes I go up 10 levels on some things, and some things I go up on 1 level.
And that's a big learning because a lot of people, they believe you can't change your thoughts and you can't change your emotions, so they just live with them and get stuck with them. And you learn, oh no, wait a minute, I can. And as soon as you learn it, you got excited.
I did,
and I'm going to change everything now. Which is great because I get that with a lot of clients. They once they learn how simple the technique is, they want to go off and do it themselves, which is brilliant. Yeah. But it's that learning that it can be done. It's not something the mind can logically grasp hold of until you experience it. But once you experience it, you can kind of go, oh wow, I can finally change the thoughts. Because when you're having depression, a lot of thoughts that I was having when I was having it were crazy.
Yeah, mine was
they were really doolally thoughts, and that's one of the blocks that a lot of men certainly have that I see. They don't want to deal with their depression.
I was having arguments with myself of when I was going to end my life. Well, how are you going to do it? We're going to do it like that. No, you're not going to do it like that. I was having conversations like that.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah, the brain does really weird things, and it can create all sorts of things, and you can make up things that sound really nuts and crazy, and you can also and you can feel that you're crazy. So a lot of men don't want to deal with the thoughts because they think they're crazy, they don't understand them, so they think nobody else is going to understand them because they think they're going nuts. And I've had a lot of men say that to me when they finally they get up the courage to come to me. They think they're going nuts. They didn't want to express it. You're not going nuts. You're fine. It's a process. It's a program.
I sort of also had a belief that, well, yeah, I'll do it, but you can't help me I did know that. Yeah. And that's what I remember. But then it wasn't until like the first time that I had it, then all of a sudden I thought, hang on a minute. If you can now all of a sudden, once I'd done that first treatment, then I had so much belief that it was possible because I instantly felt the internal state change, and then it didn't take long for my brain to work out, hang on a minute, this is you can literally do anything. You can use this for anything.
You can literally use it
for anything. Yes, but we're going to talk about depression now. I created all my problems anyway. So the one thing is that I'd created all my problems. I was trying to blame everybody else for them, and once I took ownership that I'd created all of my problems and changed all the negative thoughts for taking responsibility for them, then that instantly was the first step in solving the problem. Yeah. So for me, the first step of the problem is stop making excuses, stop blaming, stop playing poor me, and take responsibility.
Take responsibility.
Yeah, and stop taking it personally.
Yeah,
just stop taking it personally. That's the first step, personal. And then
it feels very personal. It really does feel personal. We get that, but it's not personal.
But that's the cause.
Once you change your perception, you'll realise it's not personal. Yeah. And a lot of people, when they do that, or when we do that with people, they laugh. Because once their perception changed, they realise how silly it was. And they're laughing at their own stuff. We're not laughing at them. Yeah. And we find it funny as well with our own stuff. Yeah. Some of the perceptions I've had have been mental, and I looked at it and gone, that was nuts, that was crazy. But when I do it with clients, they go, once you switch off their response, they go to a place of laughter. Because it is so silly deep down, and once the negative emotion response is gone, you just feel silly. You find it funny.
I've had when we cleared some stuff with me from the past. I mean, I've actually been giggling for about an hour after you finish the treatment.
You do. You go to
I can't stop giggling. I can't stop laughing. What am I laughing at? Oh, I don't know. But it's a really lovely feeling. I got to say, it's a really good feeling.
And that's
it's
really,
like a natural. It's such a natural high.
It's natural high.
It's lovely.
And that's something very different about doing DCO. There's lots of things that I learned. So. My story with depression is a bit different from Steve's. I didn't suffer it anywhere near as bad as you did. My first experience of depression was when I was in my 20s and I had a nervous breakdown. And I was depressed for 6 months. I knew nothing about therapy, and I was very lucky. I would go to work, I'd come home, I'd be down. Yeah. I had no social life, nothing, no girlfriend, so I'd just watch TV, go to bed, go to work the next day. And after about 6 months, it kind of lifted. So in that first response, I was lucky. That was the first time it happened to me. The second time it happened to me, I was a therapist at this point, and I'd learned some things already. And I'd learned how to find the root cause of depression. And I found myself down and low for about 3 weeks. And even though I was helping people and I knew what it was, I was still stuck for 3 weeks. Yeah. Thinking the world's not worth living, there's no point being here. Yeah. And even though I knew how to find it and cause it, I still went into that place because it feels very, very real. Even if you know the information, and I knew it from a different perspective, not counselling or psychotherapy. I knew it from a place of something called meta health, which I'd learnt, which shows how different shocks cause depression and other illnesses, but specific shocks cause depression, which we're going to get into in part 2. But I learnt that, but still, while I had it, I still felt the world was ending, and I couldn't function.
It's a horrible place.
I couldn't think straight. And I remember 3 weeks into this going, this is ridiculous. I literally slapped myself around the face. I literally did that. And I imagined stepping out of myself so I could think logically. Yeah. And within about 20 minutes of finding the moment that created it, the depression had lifted. And in that moment, everything I learned, then I realised I did on myself. I was doing it on other people, but I was like, well, that's the answer. That's an answer. But for me, it wasn't the total answer. So I've learned in my experience that you clear shocks and you clear trauma. And I explain more of that when we get to part 2, obviously. But after that moment, I did kept dipping in and out of depression here and there. When certain things happened, I never went really suicidal. I would go low sometimes and bawl, but I would just feel low. I sort of kind of lost my joy a little bit in life. I kind of lost my ability to laugh or just smile for no reason.
Yeah, it's exactly
my joy went away.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't really, really deep. It's just I was just sort of walking round. I'd lost my sense of humour. I'd kind of lost who I used to be. And I didn't quite know where that had come from. Even though I knew there were shocks and trauma, there were lots of shocks and trauma, and there were lots of triggers. And it was difficult for me to find the triggers. So it wasn't difficult for me to find it. It was just difficult to try and clear all the triggers because there were so many for me.
Yeah.
That was a problem. For some people, you clear a few triggers and they're gone. But for more complex people like myself and Steve, you can have multiple triggers. And I was working through them, and it just wasn't. And I was clearing a trigger and then getting triggered more. It was ridiculous. And so I had I sat myself down and as I worked with people, I realised what was happening. And this is where I got my biggest learning, because for me, clearing just shocks and trauma and triggers wasn't cutting it. Even though that works great with lots of people, there's something else you have to do. And when I realised this, that has now brought me to a place where I'm just constantly fine.
Yeah.
I'm not depressed.
Yeah.
But I don't get that excitement, the joy, because you don't have that. That's not normal. That excitement and happiness, that's actually a minor stress state. That's not real.
Yeah.
Most people just walk around just feeling okay, just feeling generally happy within themselves and content. And
I think we misconstrued happy from the stress state version of happy, where we get emotional, where you get heightened happiness.
You get a heightened happiness. That's actually a state of excitement, exhilaration.
Yeah, exactly,
but that excitement, exhilaration doesn't last. That's not a normal, constant people are happy. They're just content.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to get to that happy, content place. Yeah. And this process that I stumbled upon, that instead of clearing shocks and trauma, as Steve said, is a place of forgiveness. When you get to a place of forgiveness, that is when you're forgiving the other people, you're forgiving yourself. It's not something you do logically. You can't just go, I forgive now. It's actually a process I've developed and worked through. And once I start doing it on me and Steve and other people, that is when that just contentment just kicked in.
Yeah, the forgiveness
and I'm
thing.
Continually content with what's happening around me.
Yeah, the forgiveness thing is really important, because I had this misconception of, I used to a lot of spiritual teachings and all the rest of it, and and they say, oh, you need just to forgive, and I'd think to myself, okay, well, I'm going to think about that. Okay, well, do you know what? I've forgiven you, right?
Yeah.
And I would just literally say, okay, right, fine. Well, I'm saying it and I'm thinking it, so I'm going from the conscious part of the brain of forgiveness. And the problem is that you do that and you actually really believe you forgive them. I speak to people, oh no, I've forgiven him for that. And then you ask them a very simple question, they get triggered by it. Well, you have not forgiven that person for it.
No, if you still get triggered by it, or as an emotional response or a negative thought, you haven't actually forgiven.
Yeah, and that's what I learned from this process, is that everybody that I'd convinced myself and everybody else that I had forgiven them, and actually I hadn't forgiven them at all. I just stopped thinking about if I stopped thinking about them and I suppressed the emotional response, then I've forgiven them because I'm no longer feeling it.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people do.
Yes.
And when I talk about forgiveness, I mean something very specific. It's not your traditional viewpoint of forgiveness.
No, it's not.
And that's a bit difficult to explain, but we'll go more into that in part 2 of what that means and the process that we go through. But that was a missing piece for me and for some challenging clients that I work with, because a lot of clients with depression, actually it's quite simple to solve. With the great respect, if you've been suffering for a long time, I'm not putting it down, but actually a lot of people I see with depression, you can solve it quite simply by clearing a few triggers, a few shocks, and depression heals. But if you're a bit more complex like me and Steve, we've had lots of shocks, lots of triggers, you have to do something a bit deeper. And we want something that's permanent, that's going to last, so you don't get re-triggered. And this forgiveness process that I've created with DTO allows you to do that, and you just go to that constant place of contentment.
It's amazing.
Peace.
It's amazing place. I love it.
And you're just you're not going up and down like a yo-yo. So you just wake up feeling happy, you just live life.
You get more energy as well, because you have more energies, because all the energy that's being used up in the subconscious with the emotions of the past, and you're sort of liberating them.
Yeah, you are. You're
liberating energy for yourself.
Yeah. You feel lighter, and for me, there's just like this cool breeze around me a lot of the time. There's like just a cool breeze that I'm feeling as I'm just moving through life. And don't get me wrong, me and Steve are still shifting things and clearing things. But as we clear more things, then we just feel more of a cool breeze. We've just felt that contentment and peace just because now I have this system. This system's only been created in the past 5 years. So I'm shifting things that I previously couldn't shift with other techniques, and I tried everything. I tried counselling, I tried EFT, I tried theta healing, matrix reimprinting, multiple other techniques,
CBT,
meditation.
CBT?
My actual physical therapist was a CBT counsellor, and he did that on me. So that's the bit of counselling I did, and it kind of worked. And it would go away for a little bit, then come back. And there was a deep issue I was wrestling with, and I struggled with that as well.
I even went down the medication route.
Yeah, I didn't
for a little while,
that, but a lot of my clients have. Yeah, and
that didn't help one bit for me. Made me feel awful.
Well, I mean,
sick.
Sometimes medication has an easy effect. Sometimes it works a little while and then comes back. One of my clients, and she was a lovely girl. I maybe I mentioned this on the anxiety one, but I mention this story a lot because it really hit home to me the problem in this world and the power if you know what to do to change it. And I'm not saying me and Steve are the only ones who know how to change it, because we're not. There's lots of great practitioners out there. But it's the lack of knowledge that people have that it can be changed, which me and Steve are trying to correct.
Yeah.
But this one young girl came to me, and bless her boyfriend brought her to me, and she was suffering depression. And she's had it for years, since she was 8, and she's now like 21, 22. And she'd been at uni, the medication was no longer working, she'd come home and she was desperate. And she was totally sceptical, and she came to me, and after the first session, she looked up with a big grin on her face and said, "Is this what happiness feels like?"
Yeah.
And I pretty much burst into tears with her, because to me, for someone who was in her early 20s and hadn't experienced happiness since she was 8, to me was tragic.
Yeah, it's tragic.
That was appalling.
Yeah,
but she's now absolutely fine after 6 sessions. She's fine. Depression's got, she's doing great. She's creative again. No more depression. She's living her life again, and she's functioning life again. And so I've always been an advocate in showing people you can solve and heal the problem.
Yeah.
And it's just, we need to dispel these myths and these beliefs about depression. So now we can't express where we were and how we were stuck, and we were stuck in different ways.
Yes. It's also debilitating. It's life crippling. It's like
because it affects being in relationships. For me, it affected me around my mum and dad and everything, and how I was with them. And it affected me in relationships, and
well, we'll go on to that. I think in a little bit later on, and how the effects are. Because I know for me personally, it got to the point where I become so isolated and alone for 2 years that that it's a crazy place to be. So anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to talk a little bit about the traditional viewpoint of medicine. And so, and I know you've been doing some looking into this, Jonathan. So I'm just wondering whether you'd like to start really with what the traditional viewpoint of medicine is, and some misunderstandings and misconceptions about it.
Okay, so the big misconception in traditional medicine is, the main thing is, whenever you have a problem, regardless of whether it's depression or not, the main misconception of the medical profession is that we're broken and we're damaged in some way, and that's because they see us as mechanical. And when you look at the body as mechanical, that's not really strictly accurate. Yes, there are mechanical parts to us, but they're actually controlled by something else. And because they think we're mechanical, they try and fix us mechanically. And if something's broken, they believe it can't be fixed. So traditional, and the same way with trauma, you think if you've been traumatised, you can't fix it. It's the same thing. You're stuck with it.
Yeah.
And that's because of the way they view the body. And I want to explain to people how medicine came up with their theory of the body, because people don't understand this. Now, this is really important, because once you understand this, you'll realise actually the way they're treating people doesn't make sense. So medicine took its theory of how the body works from science. So in the 1600s, Isaac Newton discovered gravity. And before he did that, there were 2 camps. There was 2 scientific camps. One camp said that the world is mechanical, and the other camp said it's energetic. and the science would fight over it. But when Isaac Newton discovered gravity, that kind of confirmed the world was mechanical. And all the energists went, oh, well, it's mechanical, so it's mechanical. So they all went, it's mechanical. And then doctors at that point went, you know what, if the world's mechanical, then humans must be mechanical, so we'll treat you like you're mechanical. And that's where doctors got their theory of the body and how they then treat you. But that was in the 1600s. In the 1800s, Einstein came
1900s
along.
actually.
1885, 1900, something like that. It was
not going to argue about it.
No. It was late. But
yeah.
in the late 1800s, 1900s, Einstein came along and he developed his E equals MC squared, and he proved categorically that everything was made of energy. Everything. When basically they split the atom open, and at that point the atom was the smallest thing in the world, and because the atom was like a small ball bearing, whatever it was, everyone thought it was mechanical.
Yeah.
But when they split it, all they found was a bunch of energy inside.
Yeah.
So they realised if the atom's made of energy, then everything is made of energy. Everything starts with energy. And since that time, since Einstein proved that, and the other scientists around that time proved everything's made of energy, doctors then were able to develop CT machines, CT scans, MRIs. And all of those things that they use to diagnose you are actually reading your energy field, because they're born out of the science that states we're energy.
Yes.
So when you have an X-ray on a bone, it's actually reading the vibration of the bone.
Yeah.
It's reading the energy of it. When you have a CT scan on your brain, it's reading the vibration of it. You're not seeing anything solid. Yeah. It's not a photograph. You're not seeing the actual bone. You're seeing the vibration. And that's born out of the science that it's energy.
Well, everything in this universe, as far as I'm aware, is energy vibrating at different frequencies, and therefore it gives it different density.
That's right. So when they X-ray or CT scan, they're seeing the frequency that your brain or your body parts vibrating at.
Okay.
So they diagnose you energetically, but they still treat you with mechanical treatments as if you're mechanical. Now, I'm sorry, I don't care how intelligent you are or how smart, there is no way anyone can tell me that makes logical sense.
Yeah.
Why is it logical? And I've asked loads of people, no one has ever said it's logical, that they diagnose you energetically, but they still treat you mechanically. That's where they're coming from. That's their model. That's how medicine was created. And so when they come up with their reasons for depression, which are sometimes abuse and sexual trauma, which they believe can't be turned off, medications they believe affect it, conflict can create it, death or loss, genetics, major events in your life, other personal problems, and serious illness and substance abuse. These are some of the main things that are listed as creating depression. But a lot of these things are viewed as mechanical or things that are stuck because we're mechanical that can't be solved. Whereas if you now look at it and go, well, all of those things are energetic. Everything, even the substance abuse, the medication, the trauma, the genetics, the major events, all of that is energetic. If you look at it like it's energy and go, right, so everything's made of energy, we're made of energy, now you can work out how do you change the energy. Yeah. What changes the energy? And that is what we're going to discuss in part 2. We're going to discuss how you change the energy of the problem and what sort of energy you're looking for, because it's not just general energy. Yeah. And everything they list here, conflicts, death, loss, major events, personal problems, that's too general. There's actually a very specific type of block in the energy that creates depression. And once you know that very specific block and you have a way to change it, which is DTO, then you can start switching off depression and you can start healing it and getting back to normal. But it's recognising that we're not mechanical, we're energetic. It's been proven by science. The science of mobile phones and smartphones and tablets, that's all that comes from energy. Yeah. That all comes from science of energy. Everything we do now comes from that science of Einstein, and everything's made of energy. We just need to change the way we are treating it. And there are some techniques out there that do treat the energy, like the things we discussed, EFT, NLP, but they don't quite have the analysis of the actual root cause of the energy. Well, it's still a bit
more of a symptom management thing rather than the cause.
And they're not quite getting to the root of the unconscious to switch it off in some people. Yeah. So in some people it worked, but for me it wasn't working. And I was doing EFT on some, it was working great, and others it wasn't working. For me, it didn't solve my whole problem. That's not because EFT doesn't work. EFT is a brilliant technique. But for me, it wasn't getting to something in my unconscious. And I wasn't being taught what that thing was. So I had to discover it for myself. I had to find out what the missing piece in my brain was. And the DTO system has helped me see the brain a different way and see what blocks us in a different way. And that's what's allowed me to heal my depression and other people that previously were very, very stuck.
Yeah.
And we discussed that in part 2. But that's basically the way traditional medicine view it.
I mean, there is a lot of myths around it, because in some cases I read that it's a disease, and that you've got it, like a bit like anxiety, that you've got it or you have it, you have to live with it, for example, and it's who you are. You know, there's nothing you can be done. It's part of your identity, the chemical imbalance in the brain. And so, you know, there's a lot of common myths around it. And as you well know, that actually, that if you're going to view it from that perspective, then you're going to be stuck with it. Yeah,
if you view it from that perspective, especially 2 of the main ones in there are it's your identity. So when you have something for a long time, depression certainly, but any illness, it can you feel like it's who you are.
Yes.
And although that feels really real, I guarantee that's not who you are. If you were not born with this problem, it is not who you are.
Yeah.
It's something that's been created in you, like a program. In a very basic level, it's like a program in a computer. It's like software program to your hardware, and you're running this program. Yes, when you've had something for a very long time, one of the things I have to do is switch off this feeling that it's your identity, because people can be frightened to let it go because they don't know who they're going to be without it. And that is a real block. But it is just a block. It's not real. And I know me logically saying that to you, you're going to kind of not get it totally. And you can't logically. It's something you have to just work through and clear.
Well, I think there's something we spoke about earlier on before the program, before the show, so to speak, was the fact of seeing things through the filter.
Yes, that's right.
And I think the problem and the issue that many people that have with anxiety, with depression, is that when they're trying to solve their problem with it, they can only see the problem through it. And so you'll never find the solution ever. And
no, you can't solve it. So when you have...
and it's not who you are. It's not who you are. It's just a state.
It's a state you're in. But when you have... the energy block that create the type of shock that creates depression, a filter comes down in front of your eyes with anything, but we're talking about depression.
Yeah.
And that filter can make you see life. So it's a bit like when you go to opticians and they put that red and green lens on those funny glasses. You now see the letters through the green or the red lens. But when you're seeing the world through that green or red lens, you're seeing a false perception of the world. And that false perception, if you try and heal it from that false perception, you're not actually coming from who you are. Yeah. You're coming from another version of you, a false version of you. So when you're coming from a false version of you, if it's not the real you can't ever solve it. You can't ever work it out. It's not something you can do logically either. So men listening, you really can't solve this logically. Another big thing that men like to do is they want to be able to solve it themselves. They think they should be able to solve it themselves because we're men.
Yeah, and I know who I am, and I understand, and I'm smart, and I'm intelligent, and I know.
And that's great, guys. You do know you are smart and intelligent. But if I have a leak in my sink, I don't try and fix it myself. I call a plumber.
Yeah.
If I can't, my car's broken. If I try to fix it myself, I'd damage the car a lot more.
Yeah.
You know, I would cause more damage and cost me more time and money to fix my own car than if I just take it to a mechanic. But that's sometimes what people do. Certainly, men they try and find a solution themselves, and in doing so, they go round in circles in their brain, and they go inside their heads. And when you go inside your head, you then start feeling alone.
Yeah.
And the feeling of alone can make the depression worse.
Well, not only that, it's if you're feeling alone, you start behaving alone, then all of a sudden the people that try and help you, you no longer want. You'll you'll reject your partner.
You push everyone away.
Then all of a sudden they're going to leave you because they've had enough of the behaviour.
That's right.
Now you really are alone. Now you're in the danger zone because you've got nobody. You've lost everybody. You've lost your job. You can't. And then obviously it just facilitates it worse.
It just spirals out and out of control.
And the thing that I would like to say really from the bottom of my heart is, guys, if you are suffering from depression out there, do not try and do this alone, for simply that reason, is that what you'll do is you'll be on the slow downward decline, spiralling down, and unless you do find a solution, and well done if you do, but if you carry on trying to solve this yourself, you don't know what's caused it, you will spiral down to the point where I got to, where I just had a complete enough. I just wanted to take my life. And there's lots of people that we've heard recently in the news that have taken their life through depression, probably from that exact process. So we urge you to don't put your pride to one side, and actually, if you really want to solve this, you can't do it yourself. come and either contact ourselves or get a therapist that can help you.
And the other sign that men do a lot, and I'm talking about men because me and Great Steve are men. Well, we're close.
Yeah.
We're part girl, but well, I am part girl. But men also think it's a sign of weakness if they deal with their thoughts and emotions, or if they can't do themselves. They view that as a sign of weakness. Now, that is partly society's viewpoint of what it's like to deal with emotions and thoughts.
Yeah, we've got to be a man who comes. You got to man up, son.
And they kind of block it away. But that viewpoint is actually illogical. Surely, if you can't deal with something, that's weakness. That's a sign of weakness and a lack of strength. If you're not able to deal with something, if you're not able to look at how you're thinking and feeling, that's not strength. That means somewhere in your system you're not confident or you're not strong enough, and you're feeling weak. It's not true. That's how you feel.
Yeah.
It's not a true thing. It doesn't mean you're not strong or confident. I had that when I was younger. I didn't want to look at the things, and I had something happen to me when I was younger, and I didn't want to go there. Didn't want to look at it because I was frightened to look at it. But a lot of guys, I had one guy come and see me recently, and he was suffering anxiety and depression over something that's been running for a very long time, and he was so nervous about picking up the phone because he was worried about me judging him. He was worried about what somebody else would think.
I get this all the time. I get this all the time.
And if it wasn't for one of his mates who literally said, just call him, he finally built up the courage to call me, and he was very nervous talking to me, and he was very worried about what I would think because he was judging himself.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
He was just judging himself.
Spot on. That's all
and
about all
if you're worried about feeling weak or looking weak, actually it's just because you think you're weak. It's not because you're weak. It's because you think you're weak. Nobody else is going to think you're weak. And if a mate said, "Oh, you're weak, mate," and did that, that's because they feel weak as well.
Yeah.
It's how you're feeling about yourself.
Yeah, and if you're going to value somebody's comment like that over your own health and emotional well-being, then you need to go back and get a rain check. And I remember the first time I went to my counselling, and I was in exactly the same thing, and I thought, I've got to do something. And I went to my first counselling session, and I was bricking it, and I was shaking, and I was worried, and all the rest of it. And afterwards, I thought, why have I spent so long not doing it?
Exactly.
I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah.
It's quite good. So
this guy, the same thing. He was nervous. His first session, he was nervous. 4 weeks later, he's now opening up. He's now telling me things. He's let go of his guilt and his shame about things.
I know.
And his depression has lifted. His anxiety's lifted. He's sleeping better. He's more himself. He's feel calmer and more relaxed. The people around him are calm and relaxed, so his partner, his kids, they're more relaxed, and his friends are now coming to him for advice because he's calmer, so he's able to advise his friends and the people he loves from a much healthier place. And before, he was getting angry and he was alienating people, was pushing people away. They were treading on tiptoes around him. Because they were didn't know who was going to be that day. Yeah. Didn't know how he was going to be feeling. He's going to be angry today.
I think a lot of people out there will resonate with that.
That's what happens. People tiptoe around you because they never know what mood you're going to be in. And that happened with me. One day I'd be kind of okay, and the next minute I'd be fucked off. I'd be moody. I'd be angry with the world, and I just wanted to punch people. And this guy, it wasn't quite the same, but he was moody and angry. And now people are just coming back to him naturally because he's calm. Yeah. And within a few weeks, literally, this guy has transformed. And he's not totally there yet. Because we did 4 weeks and we need to do a few more weeks. But in 4 weeks, this guy transformed from being depressed, anxious, nervous, judgmental, guilty, ashamed.
I can validate that.
To feeling more peaceful, more calm. Yeah. People asking him for it. His whole skin has changed. He looks healthy. He looks more confident. It's actually kind of like a miracle to witness his transformation. And that's hard for people to understand, I know. But this guy's had this for 20 odd years. He's been running this.
Yeah, and you think about being stuck in that for 20 years, and after 4 weeks, he's now nowhere near that.
He's nowhere near that. He said he's 70% better.
20 years you've been in that state. You feel sorry for people like that. You really do.
And he's 70% better in 4 weeks.
So do you think this is about the beliefs that especially men have or around depression? Because I know that men can think that they're going mad or crazy, or they're having random thoughts, or that no one can help them.
Well, because the thoughts are crazy sometimes, they believe no one's going to understand, so no one can help. But those thoughts you're having aren't the problem. That's like a symptom. It's not a cause. So trying to analyse the thoughts won't work. I had a guy like that with panic attacks. He he's a lovely bloke, went on his honeymoon, came back with panic attacks, And the thoughts he was having were crazy. He was going to jump off a bridge. He was having these really nasty thoughts. And because he thought they were crazy and he didn't understand them, he thought nobody else would understand and be able to help. But those weren't the cause. They were just a symptom of what's actually going on. So, yeah, all these beliefs. And although women are more open to being helped, they often just go for the wrong help. They don't know where to go. We often don't know where to go to get the right help. So if what you've done, ladies, hasn't worked, doesn't mean it's not going to work or heal it. It just means you need to find the right solution, which we're going to give you in part 2. Exactly what the solution is, exactly what the steps are. But
don't women know what they'll do is they'll go and talk about it, and they will actually get some temporary relief for a little while,
right.
for 4 or 5 minutes or 10 minutes or an hour or whatever, and then as soon as they go back into the environment, or as soon as they get triggered by their husband, they get re-triggered.
That's right.
And then they go back into depression again.
That's right.
And they'll go through this and they feel like, but not being a woman, I would imagine that's really that can be quite misleading and can keep you trapped in. I've
only been a woman once, but that was for a fancy dress party, in fairness. But I did wax my legs, so I was close.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, women are much more comfortable generally with talking about things because women are social creatures. Men are very territorial. Women are social creatures, so they learn social skills. Men are territorial. Doesn't mean men haven't learned social skills. That's not what I'm saying. But deep down in our chemistry, we are hardwired to be territorial. So men are only worried about 4 walls. Their territory, which is
so when you talk about
home.
men and their social skills, is that bragging about what car they drive and how much money they've earned and the holidays that they've been on?
Yeah, men are very territorial. They're more like they're worried about their work, their 4 walls, their partner, and their kids. Whereas women are very and not all men have social skills. A lot of men do these days, but some men don't. Whereas women, they're kind of hardwired with that. They're kind of hardwired with social skills because women actually create nests, they make friends, and they do all these things. I'm not being sexist. This is a biological response from thousands of years back. And although, yes, the energy has shifted a little bit and some men are more feminine these days and some women are more masculine, inherently that's kind of the way we are. Whether that's right or wrong is not up for debate. I'm just saying that's the way we are. And so women are more open to dealing with things and men are less open to dealing with it. And that's the big problem. That's why depression and anxiety have been talked about so much these days. But still the way they're talking about it is incorrect. They're still thinking like it's something that is bad and wrong that needs to be talked about. But no one's thought about healing it. They're talking about making everyone aware of it. Everyone's saying, let's make everyone aware of it. Let's bring it out in the open. No, let's heal it. Let's switch it off. Let's get rid of it. Because it really can be switched off. It really can be healed. You just need to understand that it's trapped energy. It's not mechanical. You're not broken. You're not damaged. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. You're not going insane. You're not an emotional wreck. You're absolutely fine. It won't feel like you're fine because you're not being you right now. Yep. But if we take those thoughts and emotions and switch them off and show you which ones are the problem, you'll know what the problem is, you'll know the sort of triggers, and you'll know how to change it. But just before we kind of...
I was going to say, it's like some of the reasons why people won't heal it is because of the blocks of the guilt and the shames that they have in their life.
That's right.
So, they will not take steps to heal it and solve it because they either feel guilty or they don't feel good enough or they have a self-worth issues or they have ashamed, and so that's right. Fundamentally the reason why
the biggest problem
why they won't heal it. Yeah,
Steve's absolutely right. The biggest problem that people have, which is very unconscious, it's not always conscious. One of the reasons they don't go and get help or they don't want to get to deal with it is because of shame and guilt. And shame and guilt is a big sabotage for people. And it actually drives the feeling of not being good enough and not being worthy. If you feel guilty about lots of things, you'll feel like you're not good enough to get better or you're not worthy of getting better. And if you feel shame, you're going to actually prevent yourself from talking about things or discussing it because of how you're feeling shame about how you're feeling. You're feeling shame about what people think of you, or you might be feeling guilt about what you've done in the past or your actions and behaviours. The truth is we are human beings. We all make mistakes. We all get things wrong, we all muck up, and we all do things that we don't think are right. But the guilt and shame is an illusion. There's a big myth about guilt, which I want to dispel right now, because guilt is one of the biggest problems that drives all illness. People think that we need to feel guilty to stop us doing that bad thing again. This is a big myth. This does not work. Actually, the opposite is true. If you want to stop the bad behaviour that you did in the past, you'll probably find that you're still doing it. The reason you're still doing it is because you feel guilty. The guilt actually drives the same negative behaviour over and over again in your unconscious. So consciously, yes, you want to stop it. But unconsciously, because you feel guilty, you keep replaying it even though you don't want to.
And you keep attracting the same people, the same situations, the same
That's
outcomes,
right.
and it's like a cycle that goes round and round and round and
That's
round.
right. And the only way to stop it is to actually switch the guilt off.
Yeah, because when we switched a lot of my guilts off from my younger years and stuff, instantly my life changed, and instantly new people come into my life, and everything just changed overnight for me. It was like it did magically change overnight.
And you went back to being a nicer person.
Yeah, absolutely.
You stopped doing that behaviour, didn't you?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
you stop
absolutely.
doing the behaviour that you're doing. You start liking yourself again. Because if you feel guilty, how can you love yourself? People want to love themselves, and actually what I've learned through doing DTO, and one of the big issues that everyone talks about today is loving yourself. And while I agree that's a big problem, and that's part of can be part of where depression comes from if it's very severe, actually what drives that lack of love is feeling guilty. If you feel guilty about lots of things, you feel like you're a bad person, you feel like you're evil or you're dangerous, that is where your lack of love comes from. But that guilt is driving your behaviour, and if you switch it off, you stop doing those bad things, you stop doing bad behaviour, and you start loving yourself.
Yeah. So if you by switching off the guilt, but not only that as well, is if you can overcome the guilt and shame of that, then you're on the path to start solving the depression as well.
And also one more thing, the guilt and shame can actually cause you to punish yourself. So you can actually end up punishing yourself and keeping...
It could lead you to anxiety then as well.
Yeah, and then you're beating yourself up, and you can then keep your depression and anxiety because secretly deep down you think you deserve it. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a very severe depression case.
I think there's a few people out there may connect to that.
And they may connect to that. That's not everybody. That's really deep-rooted people. I've had that, I've had guilt about different things and shame about mistakes I've made, and that caused me to suffer more than I needed to. That's a really complex person, and I do treat quite a few complex people, but the general majority of people who have depression, it can be solved in a few weeks or a couple of months, and it can be switched off quite easily, and it can be changed reasonably quickly, and you can go back to being you. But as we said, guilt and shame is a big block, and it's a big sabotage thing for people. So is there anything else in this part? I think we've covered the main things. Is there anything else you want to cover?
No, not really. I think that for those of you that are obviously suffering depression and you would like to start taking steps to do something about it, you can contact myself, Stephen, at www.healingthemind.co.uk. Alternatively, you can contact Jonathan on decodingpain.com, and you can contact us on the inside out effect at gmail.com. You can send us an email. All of your information is sent to us and deal with in confidence, and you can basically start taking steps to moving out or living without it, or taking steps to remove depression out of your life. So we are going to do part 2 next week, or very soon, hopefully in a few days, and what we're going to do is we're going to give you the solution to this problem. So
we are going to give you a solution, but in the next part we're going to give you the exact steps. A set of steps and certain things you need to do to solve your depression. But we need to clear up these distinctions in this part first. We need to clear up the myths and the beliefs and show you what we went through and what other people go through to kind of get you thinking differently, to get you to see why you're stuck and get you thinking differently. So in part 2, when we show you the steps, you're going to know what to do to heal it, and you're going to know what you need to do to resolve the problem and actually what's causing your depression. We're going to show you on the next audio exactly what's causing your depression. And then you'll know what it is, and then you'll know a solution to it. And once you've got that, you can then find someone to help you do it, find someone to help you work your way through it. And once you know exactly what needs to be done, your depression will lift. You'll go back to feeling normal again, because a lot of people just don't feel normal. They want to feel normal again.
Yeah, but it happens so quickly. That's the thing for me. As soon as you lift it, it happens so quickly.
Very quickly.
Shoot, I mean, it just boom, you're back to normal again.
Back to normal.
So that's thank you very much, Jonathan. It's really, really good, obviously, that we're doing these. I think we're going to do. We're going to also cover stress, aren't we? We had a conversation earlier. I think there's a massive misunderstanding about stress. So after the depression podcast, we're going to be talking about stress, but that'll be not next week, the week after. And what else?
Well, yeah, if you are enjoying this, as we said at the beginning, just post it out to people you think would benefit from hearing it, who you feel are stuck and they don't want it anymore. They want to be free of it, and just share it with people, because we just want to get the information out there and get new information out. Because as I said earlier on, there's a lot of talk about it at the moment, but all the talk that I hear about it is just making people aware of it. But they're still making people aware of the wrong problem.
Yeah.
And they're not saying it can be solved. They're just making you aware of it. And
that could breed more depression, couldn't it?
And that's okay. But in my world, I want to solve things. I'm not into coping and maintaining things.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get rid of things so I can be me again, so I can feel healthy and happy and confident, and I can do the things that I love and interact with people that I love and enjoy. And that for me, I don't believe in suffering at all. I never have done. And I do believe that one day there will be no suffering in this world, and we will have learnt what it means to not suffer and how to be healthy and happy. I know that's probably a big claim, but I've always believed that, and that's what drives me to do what I do and help as many people as possible.
That's very touching, mate. It's a lovely place to finish the podcast.
It's a nice place to finish, was it? It's a nice place to finish.
A little bit of hope and inspiration for the world.
Yes.
So thank you very much for listening. And so please join us for the next edition of the Inside Out Effect. Like we said, please share and just get the word out there. So from myself, goodbye. From Jonathan.
From me, it's good night, and from Steve, it's
good night.
Is that trademarked? I'm not sure. Don't sue us if you know. It's just a joke.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.